so getting ready to install the upper intake manifold. Just wanted to show you my vacuum routing. Again, yours will be different. This is for a Cobra, so it doesn't really have as many accessories as a Foxbody Mustang. So anyway, with this big hose here that they double up, and they do this on the Foxbody too, but this is goes to your PCV, and I'll show you that in a second. So we block this one, we block this one. If you had a power brakes and you had a vacuum booster, you'd use one of these big ones to go right to that power booster there. So let's see what else we got. I blocked another one here. This one, I'm gonna run this vacuum hose and this long one here are gonna go to heater controls. This, believe it or not, this car does have heat, which is nice, I suppose. So those two vacuum hoses, remember on the Fox, you've got the T there, kind of makes like a little castle looking thing for those small vacuum lines, and that goes for the heat there. This one here, that goes to a vacuum source for the charcoal canister, and it probably feeds some other stuff there. It probably feeds a tree or vacuum tree or something over there, I'm not sure. And the last one over here goes to the BAP sensor, and that's a barometric air pressure. It's not like a MAP. I think the newer ones have a MAP sensor. Newer, meaning like the 90, 91, 93, and so on have a MAP sensor, a manifold absolute pressure. But these old ones, they just monitor the barometric air pressure, so on. Anyway, that's my routing there. There is the PCV system. Pretty simple, positive crankcase ventilation. It's just like a one-way valve, and it's, providing positive ventilation to the crankcase. So, no big deal. I'm just gonna, one other thing. Make sure, mine didn't come with bolts. Nice gloves. So I bought a set of bolts off of eBay. The ones for the Fox Mustang, for the stock intake, they're a little bit too short. So don't count on those working. Plus there's only 2 of those long ones. You're gonna need 4. One of them is a stud, one's a regular. It doesn't really matter for me. I could use both regular bolts, but I bought this really nice set, and it was not cheap. I mean, I maybe like $30 or something like that, but yeah. So simple. I'm just gonna maybe I'll do a little time lapse or something. I'm gonna put the manifold gasket on there and just bolt it down just for looks. Oh yeah, duh. Got the valve covers on, Cobra powered by Ford. That was easy peasy easy. Just 6 bolts. The one thing, if you notice sorry about that light. If you notice the channel here is super narrow. I ended up using a nut driver, and then to get just a little bit of extra torque, I have this old kit. God, I bought this when I was a teenager. I worked at a home center, and I bought this little Makita deal here. So, but anyway, it has a 7/16 on it, and you can use like a T-handle, and I could get just a little more torque in there because I could not get any of my standard sockets into that valley at all. And even that one right there, the other side was okay, but this one, it's tight, and I don't even know if I could get it out. I probably have to tap a really thin socket on there to get that one removed. Anyway, let's get the crown jewel going on. Sorry that's so washed out. Oh, yeah, better. Cobra. All right, well, nothing really to that. You saw I had to, I don't know if you tell in the time lapse, I got it halfway bolted on, had to unbolt it. I couldn't get this one in underneath the cowl, so I just had to set that giant bolt in there and kind of slide it into place. Looks good. Looks really good. This looks so much nicer than crappy blue valve covers and stock 87 to 93 Mustang intake manifold. I mean, I can't stand the way those things look. It's probably because I know how poorly they perform. So, but anyway, yeah, looking pretty sharp. We'll button some things up, you know, vacuum lines and so on. I'm not in a hurry. Again, I'm still waiting for a thermostat housing gasket. Anyway, but yeah, this is just a lot nicer. And you know, the Fox has a lot of junk. I mean, it's never going to look quite as nice as, you know, a regular 302 with carburetor or a throttle body fuel injection on it. You know, what with the wiring harness and everything, and it's tough to clean up in the bay of a Cobra, but looking pretty sweet. I'm gonna do something with this 710 cap, the oil cap. Yeah, and that's just set on there. I bought some bolts to hold it in place here in the house, but yeah, we're getting there. Still got to clean up that EGR spacer deal, clean that up and paint it, and got a ways to go here, but yeah, looking. The guy who put this thing together used all the wrong size hose clamps, and these little tails are sticking up all over the place. I fixed a little heater valve here. I used Gates power shrink. He had, I don't know, 16 clamps of the wrong size with those little tails hanging out. Anyway, I digress. All right, so we're going to install just a couple of peripherals here as our next step. That EGR spacer, plate, whatever, you know, the exhaust gases flow through it, coolant flows through it. We're going to install the throttle body, and that's it. A bunch of the harnesses will get plugged in, and throttle cable will get put back on. I had to kind of monkey around to route this thing. I think it went partially under the old intake manifold, and I neglected to run it under. And I tried to run it through, and it was too short, so it kind of has to go on a little angle. I don't know. Cobra's different than a Foxbody. The Foxbody here, we'll go over here. You know, on the Foxbody, the throttle cable enters more like in this area here. And it's kind of an easier transition. But on the Cobra, it's way over here. That's it right there. You can see that right there. So that's the throttle cable there. We'll see. We'll get it done. Got all my parts over here. Got that EGR plate all cleaned up and painted. Came out looking reasonably well for what it is. Throttle body. A minute just to talk real quick about the gaskets here. I scraped and scraped with a razor blade. I went after it with a whiz wheel, and there's still a couple of spots where it's just, you can see it's just adhered to that. And I'm looking at it like this. You can't feel it. You can't scrape it off with a razor blade. It's like body filler at this point. That's filling imperfections in there. I'm gonna leave it. I bought this really nice gasket set. Came with studs from Trick Flow. I ran into a little bit of an issue. They had gaskets for 58 millimeter throttle body or a 70. The 70 it's just too big. It's not really gonna seal. It looks okay, but it's really falling. The gasket is falling off the sides. I don't think I'm gonna use it. I don't know. We'll see. I don't think, yeah, that gasket's really not doing it. Anyway, and I don't even know what this metal plate is for. Obviously it fits. The car didn't have one. I don't know if this is for an older car, or I don't know really what this is for, but I don't need that. Anyway, I went after these with a Dremel and a sanding disc to make them fit perfectly, because this is not a 58 millimeter throttle body. It's more like a 63. So anyway, nice kit. Picked it up from Late Model Restoration Supply. I am going to use some anti-seize on the threads that go into the upper intake manifold, and I'm going to use some anti-seize on the shaft where it goes through these parts, just in case I ever have to take them apart again. Now remember, these cars, the reason these things get fused, I told you before, they get fused to the throttle body with that galvanic corrosion. Anode, cathode, liquid is introduced, water is introduced through antifreeze, and it's just, they become permanently bonded together. But again, the stuff that this stock cars came off of, stock, are 30, 35 years old. And a lot of them were daily driven. This Cobra's not going to see the weather. But anyway, in case I ever take it apart, I am going to use anti-seize. So we'll go to the time lapse and get a few of these parts bolted on. All right, so we got the EGR spacer plate there installed. Got the throttle body, got all the hoses, all the wiring harness, got the throttle cable, this vacuum line, this kind of hacked up valve he's got going there for the heat, all wired up, reinstalled. I noticed this. You guys help me out. I don't know what this harness is. It's green, 2 pink wires. I don't think it goes to anything. I don't think I unplugged it. It looks super corroded. I think it's just something that's not used on this application. The only thing, I don't know if you see this in the time lapse because it was really quick, putting the spacer on, it wouldn't go on. There was so much corrosion still in the holes. And I was trying to think, like, what can I do? Like a pipe cleaner or something to go through them? Like, duh, drill bits. I just ran the proper size drill bit in there, and you would not believe the amount of corrosion that came out, the powder, the dust, the nastiness that just came out of there. And once all that corrosion was on, boom, it slipped right on. So we're waiting for a couple more parts here. Cold air intake, couple of little dress-up items here and there, and we'll wrap up the installation of the upper intake manifold. So I'm waiting on those parts. Should be here by the end of the week. We'll get this video wrapped up. Cool. All right, so one of the last things we're gonna do to wrap up this project is we're gonna clean up the intake tract here a little bit. And I get what the guy who built the car was trying to do with the blue valve covers and the blue hoses, you know, couplers, and I think this thing was blue actually. Yeah, at some point in its life it was blue. But this stuff is like, I mean, this is just AutoZone garbage. And honestly, when you try and match, you know, parts in your engine, you know, the valve covers, you get silicone hoses in yellow and blue and whatever, and this stuff in blue, it just looks cheap and tacky in my opinion. It's like, it's so, you know, I hate to use the term, but it's so ricer. It's just bad. Anyway, so we got some nice black silicone hoses, and I got the T-clamps too. And I know this is overkill, no boost or anything, it's just the intake tract, but these just look better. You know, they look better. They perform a little bit better too, because they don't pinch, they provide even pressure around the coupler, but anyway, it's gonna look a lot nicer. And I bought a really nice, large, whoa, can't hang on to it, Airraid air filter. Huge. Now, does it need to be this big? No. But it looks better. It will perform better. I mean, am I going to gain 1/3 of a horsepower? 1 horsepower? I don't know. You know, we'll see. But it's, you know, anyway, it's all going to look nicer, you know. Nicer looking intake manifold that flows better. You know, I haven't done anything to it, but nicer looking valve covers, cleaning up some of the wiring and cleaning up some of the heater hoses. We'll clean up the intake tract, and yeah, it's just gonna look a whole heck of a lot nicer. All right, so if I'm gonna wrap up the upper intake install. Nice spring day today. Super cold out over the weekend. Got this little bit of snow. It was like 17 degrees and it's pushing 50 today, thankfully. Let's start here. And how nice is it to cross something off your list? Haha, so satisfying. So let's see, what did we do? Got the upper intake installed, the valve covers installed, just a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But when I crossed off the list was the VIN tags. Got the AC Cars Limited VIN tag here, and I did stamp it, and I stamped it with a CSX number. The horror. It's just one that was a car that was sent back to Ford for like test purposes or whatever, and ended up being destroyed. So, and it didn't come out very good anyway, so you can't really see it. But part of the look. Got this Cobra cover for the oil cap here. Got nice black hoses and the nice T-bolt clamps instead of the crappy worm drive. Now these aren't necessary. This isn't pressurized here, but just looks good. Got the Shelby American tag down there. And if you can see it, got the Autolite voltage regulator there and the harness. Now it's fake. It's just there for looks, but the Shelby American tag goes close to the voltage regulator, kind of in this area on the original cars, so it wasn't terribly expensive. Picked it up, threw it on there. Why the heck not? Let's see, what else? Just a bunch of little things here. Added a fill cap here to this Factory 5 hardline. And I bought this. I reamed out and did a hole saw into the tube here. A friend of mine TIG welded it, and I put the Shelby American sticker on because it came with, I don't remember the manufacturer of this. It was ugly, orange and black sticker there. Pretty gross. Oh yeah, you can see my giant air filter and the T-clamp. It just, like I said, it just looks nice. It just looks a lot nicer. I did run into one issue. That's kind of why this video is late and taking so long. And that was the thermostat housing here. Originally when I put it back together, you know, new gasket, clean everything up, it leaked. I did not do a good job. So what I ended up doing was, my method was cleaned it, and I cleaned it again. And I did find there was a little ridge on the lower intake manifold from the powder coating. So I got that with a file, made sure it was, I mean, super duper clean. Just take your time. And then I used Permatex, it's water pump and thermostat gasket, thermostat housing sealant. Made specifically for that, made to, glycol doesn't affect it like other sealants. And what I did was, so I glued the thermostat in to this little slot, and then I did the finger, you know, I coated one side of the gasket with just a thin finger swipe of that Permatex water gasket sealer, stuck that to it. I let that tack up a good amount, and then I actually applied another finger swipe seal to the other side and then put it on. And Permatex recommends what you do is their instructions are to make a gasket out of it. I did not do that. I use a regular paper gasket sandwiched in between. And if you're dealing with old cars like this, you're gonna have tolerances that aren't great in your parts, and you need to either use the Permatex to make the gasket or use it in conjunction with a paper gasket. You just have to. So anyway, you finger tighten the bolts, let it sit for an hour, then you torque it, and then it sits for 24 hours before it touches any hot water, any kind of glycol gets put to it. So that was my method. I didn't have any other leaks. I was looking for a switched power source, so I kept cranking the key and cranking the key and cranking the key, turn it on, off, on, off. I had a tiniest little dribble of fuel, and I think that was just because I kept pressurizing the system over and over and over and over and didn't start the car. No leaks since. You know, I went through all the injectors, cleaned them all. I used dielectric grease on them when I reinstalled them, and I don't anticipate any problems. So anyway, sorry, long-winded. We're wrapping up. Lots more projects to come, but seems like this one took several weeks. I took a few weekends off in there. I had some terrible weather, didn't feel like working, so on and so forth. So as always, my friends, thanks for watching. Truly appreciate your support. Hit me up in the comments. Still reply to every comment. Give me that thumbs up. Give me a share if you're so inclined, and definitely hit sub. All right, my friends, take care.